The Lotus by Toru Dutt. Structure, summary, analysis. Hello and welcome to the discourse. The Lotus by Toru Dutt is a notable sonnet that explores themes of beauty, cultural synthesis, and poetic inspiration. Written in the 19th century by one of India's first English language poets, the poem reflects Dutt's ability to blend Eastern and Western literary traditions. The poem was published in Ancient Ballads and Legends of Hindustan in 1882. The central theme revolves around the lotus flower, a symbol of purity and dignity in Indian culture, which Dutt presents as superior to the rose and the lily, flowers often celebrated in Western poetry. Through this comparison, she asserts the beauty and significance of her native heritage while engaging with global literary forms. The poem thus serves as a celebration of indigenous traditions while demonstrating the poet's skillful adaptation of European literary styles. Structure of the Lotus. The poem follows the Petrarchan sonnet structure, divided into an octave and a sestet, with a turn in logic at the volta, line 9, and a paradoxical twist that is resolved. This classical form highlights Dutt's mastery of Western poetic conventions while infusing them with Indian imagery. The lotus, described as a perfect fusion of the rose's richness and lily's grace, becomes a metaphor for harmony between cultures. The poem is written in the traditional iambic pentameter form. However, it deviates in its rhyme scheme, using ABB-AA-CCA for the octave instead of the traditional ABB-AA-BBA. The overall rhyme scheme is ABB-AA-CCA-DED-EED. This deviation was originally developed by William Wordsworth. Dutt's sonnet has many features that adhere to Petrarchan sonnet form, though she opts for the Wordsworthian rhyme scheme, thus varying and deviating from the Petrarchan scheme. In the octave, the poem presents a debate between the rose and the lily, symbolizing Western poetic ideals of beauty as they compete for the title of Queen of Flowers. Love, personified as a goddess, struggles to choose between them, highlighting their contrasting charms. The volta arrives in line 9, marking a shift from conflict to resolution. In the sestet, a new flower, the lotus, emerges as the perfect synthesis of the rose's glow and the lily's stainless white. This resolution elevates the lotus, a sacred symbol in Indian culture, above Western flowers, asserting its supremacy. The volta thus reinforces the poem's central theme, the triumph of Indian heritage over colonial aesthetics, blending Eastern and Western traditions in both form and meaning. The lotus, as the ultimate choice, becomes a metaphor for cultural harmony and poetic innovation. The poet has used personification. Love is personified as a goddess seeking the queen of flowers, adding a mythical dimension. Allusion has been used, references to classical mythology, Flora, the Roman goddess of flowers, and Western poetic symbols, rose and lily, contrast with the Indian lotus. Symbolism is prime in the poem. The rose symbolizes passion, Western tradition, while the lily represents purity, common in European poetry. The lotus embodies divine beauty and cultural pride, symbolizing Indian tradition. The lotus is a metaphor for cultural synthesis, combining the best of East and West. Antithesis has been used. Contrast between the rose and lily heightens the lotus's superiority. Summary of the lotus. The octave, lines 1 to 8. Love came to Flora, asking for a flower, that would of flowers be undisputed queen. The lily and the rose long had been. Rivals for that high honor, bards of power, had sung their claims. The rose can never tower like the pale lily with her Juno mien. But is the lily lovelier? Thus between flower factions rang the strife in Psyche's bower. The octave of the poem describes a mythological scene where love, likely Cupid or Kama, approaches Flora, the Roman goddess of flowers, asking for a single flower that would be the undisputed queen of all flowers. The lily and the rose, long-standing rivals for this title, have been celebrated by powerful poets, bards of power, who argue over their merits. One side claims the rose cannot match the lily's majestic Juno-like grace, while the other questions whether the lily is truly lovelier. This debate rages on in Psyche's bower, a sacred romantic garden, a symbolic space linking the conflict to love and the soul. By invoking Flora, Roman, Juno, majesty, and Psyche, Greek, soul, love. Dutt creates a mythological framing that engages with European classics but subverts them with an Indian solution in the sestet. The octave mirrors Victorian debates about poetic beauty, setting the stage for Dutt's post-colonial intervention. The lily, European purity, and rose, Western passion, represent Western poetic traditions, while the lotus introduced later in the sestet symbolizes an Indian ideal, resolving the debate. In the octave of Toru Dutt's The Lotus, the poet employs a rich array of literary devices to establish the central floral rivalry. Personification animates the scene with love, Cupid, and Flora taking on human-like roles as arbiters of beauty, while the lily and rose are depicted as factional rivals engaged in a timeless debate. Allusion deepens the mythological framework, referencing Juno's regal bearing, Juno mane, to elevate the lily's majesty and Psyche's power to infuse the conflict with themes of love and the soul. Imagery paints vivid contrasts. The lily's pale grandeur against the rose's implied vibrancy and evokes the clamor of poetic disputes through bards of power. Enjambment propels the lines forward, mirroring the unresolved strife, while the rhetorical question, "But is the lily lovelier?" underscores the subjectivity of beauty. These devices collectively frame the Western-centric debate that the sestet will later resolve with the lotus, symbolizing Dutt's cultural synthesis. The sestet, lines 9 to 14. Give me a flower, delicious as the rose, and stately as the lily in her pride. But of what color? Rose red, love first chose, then prayed, no, lily white, or both provide. And Flora gave the lotus, rose red dyed, and lily white, the queenliest flower that blows. The sestet resolves the octaves debate between the rose and lily. Love asks Flora for a flower that combines the rose's sweetness and the lily's stateliness. Initially, love hesitates, first choosing rose red, then lily white, before Flora presents the lotus, a perfect fusion of both colors and virtues. The lotus, dyed rose red and lily white, is crowned the queenliest flower, surpassing the earlier rivals and symbolizing harmony. The sestet of the lotus presents a masterful resolution to the floral conflict introduced in the octave, blending Eastern and Western sensibilities through rich poetic craftsmanship. Here, love's indecision, first demanding a flower as delicious as the rose, then as stately as the lily, mirrors the earlier debate between the two flowers. But Flora's intervention introduces the lotus as the transcendent solution. This moment is charged with symbolic significance, as the lotus, revered in Indian culture, becomes the ultimate floral monarch, dyed in both rose red and lily white. The synthesis of these colors and qualities suggests a harmonious union of passion and purity, sensuality and majesty, effectively reconciling the binary opposition that dominated the octave. Dutt's choice of the lotus is particularly striking in its post-colonial implications, as it privileges an indigenous symbol over the European rose and lily, subtly challenging Western aesthetic dominance. The language of the sestet reinforces this resolution through its use of imperative and supplicatory tones. Love's commands, "Give me a flower," and prayers, "No, lily white," or both provide, create a sense of urgency and longing, which Flora answers with a gesture of divine wisdom. The brevity and finality of Flora gave the lotus underscore the decisiveness of this resolution, contrasting with the protracted debate of the octave. Furthermore, the description of the lotus as the queenliest flower that blows elevates it above its rivals, with queenliest suggesting not just supremacy, but also a regal grace that encompasses both the rose's loveliness and lily's dignity. The verb blows, an archaic term for blooms, adds a timeless, almost mythic quality to the lotus's reign, positioning it as an eternal rather than contingent victor in the floral hierarchy. Stylistically, Dutt employs a concise yet evocative diction that amplifies the sestet's thematic weight. The hyphenated descriptors, rose red and lily white, function as visual and conceptual amalgamations, compressing the two flowers' essences into the lotus's identity. This technique reflects the poem's broader project of synthesis, where dichotomies are not merely resolved but reimagined into a new, unified whole. The sestet's closing line, with its stately rhythm and definitive imagery, serves as a quiet but powerful rebuttal to the bars of power from the octave. suggesting that true poetic authority lies not in perpetuating divisions but in discovering harmonies. Through this resolution, Dutt not only resolves the poem's central conflict but also asserts the possibility of cultural and aesthetic unity, making the Lotus a testament to her visionary poetics. Dutt's sonnet, written during British colonial rule, reclaims poetic authority by elevating the lotus, a non-Western symbol, as the ultimate flower. The sextet's devices, dialogue, symbolism invert the octave strife, offering a post-colonial vision of cultural synthesis and unity. So this is it for today. We will continue to discuss the history of Indian English literature. Please stay connected with the discourse. Thanks and regards.